Imagine you're pulling a slice of hot, fresh pizza from the box. That string of gooey cheese stretches longer and longer, almost defying gravity. It's a small miracle, but here's the thing. Not all cheese behaves that way. Try heating feta or paneer the same way, and instead of a glorious melt, you're left with nothing. It just sits there. Why does mozzarella become molten silk while others stay stubborn and solid? Today, we're uncovering one of food's most mouth-watering mysteries. What makes cheese melt? It's not just temperature, it's chemistry, physics, even molecular architecture. And once you understand the real science behind it, you'll never look at a grilled cheese sandwich the same way again. Welcome, cheese and dairy enthusiasts. Whether you're all about Gouda, goat cheese, or a classic cheddar, we're here to share the love of all things dairy with you. We've got tons of cool stuff coming your way, so sit back, relax, and get ready for a fun, cheesy experience. Melting cheese isn't just cooking, it's a transformation. From solid to stretch, from slice to sauce, and sometimes from dreamy to disappointing. The key to that transformation lies inside the cheese itself, where tiny proteins and fats wage a silent war the moment heat arrives. Our mission? To decode that war and discover how to win it every time. So, let's take a journey. First, we'll look inside the cheese itself, what it's made of, and how its structure sets the stage. Then we'll explore what happens as it heats, and why some cheeses rise to the occasion while others fall flat. Finally, we'll uncover the chemistry hacks behind the perfect melt, including tricks you can use in your kitchen. To understand melting, we first have to ask, what is cheese? Most people would say it's just milk that's been aged, but that's like saying bread is just flour with time on it. Technically true, but far from the full story. Cheese is an emulsion, a complex blend of water and fat suspended in a protein network made mostly of a special molecule called casein. Imagine it like this. A sponge-like matrix of protein that traps blobs of fat and moisture. The structure is solid, but delicate. And that's important, because when heat enters the picture, it's this structure that determines what happens next. The casein proteins in cheese are clumped together, glued by calcium molecules that act like tiny bridges. These bridges give cheese its shape and firmness. But here's where the magic starts. When we heat cheese, those calcium bonds begin to break. The casein chains loosen, the fat starts to flow, and the entire matrix begins to soften. It's like watching a skyscraper slowly melt into taffy. But wait, if heat can break those bonds, why doesn't every cheese melt beautifully? Here's where things get interesting. The way cheese melts or refuses to depends on more than just its temperature. The amount of moisture, the balance of fat and protein, and even how acidic the cheese is all play a role. In fact, acidity might be the most surprising hero or villain in your next grilled cheese. It turns out, pH, the level of acidity, determines whether cheese becomes a silky sauce or a stringy mess. When a cheese is just acidic enough, it breaks apart gracefully under heat. But if it's too acidic, something strange happens. The proteins collapse into tight clumps instead of spreading out. That's why feta softens but never flows. On the flip side, cheeses with too little acid hold onto their calcium bonds too tightly. They resist melting altogether. Think halloumi. It grills like a dream, but stays firm no matter how hot it gets. The cheeses that melt best, mozzarella, young cheddar, Swiss, they live in the Goldilocks zone of acidity. Not too high, not too low, just right for a soft collapse. But acidity is just one factor. What about aging? Why does a young cheddar melt so smoothly, but an aged one breaks into oily puddles? And how do some cheeses melt into perfect sauces, while others seem to split and fail? Let's go deeper. So far, we've looked at what cheese is and how acidity can make or break the melt. But let's introduce another variable that takes us into even trickier territory: time. Because as cheese ages, something fundamental happens deep inside. Its protein structure begins to fall apart, and that changes everything. Picture a young cheddar. It's still moist, flexible, its casein network loose and forgiving. Now picture an aged cheddar, firm, crumbly and dry. What changed? As cheese matures, enzymes slowly snip the protein chains into smaller fragments in a process called proteolysis. At first, this helps with melting. A slightly aged cheese has more give, so it melts faster and more evenly. That's why medium cheddar works great in a grilled cheese sandwich. It softens beautifully with heat and creates that rich, creamy pull. But push that aging too far, and the structure breaks down too much. The casein strands are now too short to hold onto fat and water. So, when heat is applied, the fat separates and you're left with greasy pools and grainy bits. Sound familiar? Well, that's what happens with extra aged cheeses like Parmesan or sharp cheddar when you try to melt them alone. Even more fascinating, the same thing happens with blue cheese. Its acidity starts high, making it a poor melter at first. But as it ages, mold breaks down its internal acidity and softens the texture. Eventually, it turns into a creamy, spreadable paste. Some blues, like Gorgonzola Dolce, even become almost pourable. But again, take it too far and it loses its ability to emulsify. The fat and protein part ways and the melt becomes unpredictable. Okay, so we've got structure, acidity and age all affecting the melt. But here's the million-dollar question. What happens when cheese breaks? Why does it sometimes melt into a luscious blanket and other times into a greasy disaster? Remember how cheese is an emulsion, a mixture of water and fat held together by proteins. That structure is fragile. When cheese heats, fat liquefies. The protein matrix starts to unravel. And here's the key. If that matrix can still hold on to the fat and water, you get a smooth, creamy melt. But if the structure fails, everything separates. The fat escapes, the water steams off, and what's left behind? A rubbery, clumpy residue. That's a broken emulsion. Processed cheeses, like American slices, avoid this fate because they're designed to maintain their emulsion at all costs. How? With science. They contain emulsifying salts like sodium citrate, which replace calcium and loosen the casein structure just enough to hold everything together under heat. That's why they melt into perfect velvety ribbons every time. In fact, these emulsifiers are the secret behind cheese sauces, fondues, and even nacho cheese. And a touch of acid, like wine, maybe a little cornstarch, and you've got a sauce that melts smoothly and stays together. It's chemistry in action, edible emulsification. So, now we've seen how structure, acid, age, and emulsification all shape the way cheese melts. But what happens when we put it all together? What's the ultimate formula for a perfect melt? The answer, coming next, will finally make all of this click. The secret to perfectly melted cheese isn't just one thing. It's a balance of the right moisture, moderate acidity, and a young or semi-aged structure, and enough fat to keep things rich. Add heat gradually, and if needed, introduce a little emulsifier or acid to hold it together. That's why mozzarella is the king of the melt. It's moist, moderately acidic, and its proteins were stretched during production, setting it up for the perfect pull. That's why young cheddar melts better than sharp. Why does fondue use wine? Why do some cheeses melt around others rather than with them? It's all a delicate dance between chemistry and heat. And when it works, when the casein loosens just right, the fat and water stay bound, and the heat lands at the sweet spot. Cheese doesn't just melt, it transforms. So, let's recap. Cheese is a protein-fat-water emulsion, held together by calcium bridges in casein proteins. The best melters? They hit the Goldilocks zone in 3 ways. Not too acidic, not too dry, not too old. When cheese melts smoothly, it's because its structure gracefully collapses while still holding its fat and water. When it fails, it's because the structure collapses too much or not enough. Isn't it wild how something so simple on your plate hides so much complexity? Every gooey pizza pull, every creamy mac and cheese spoonful, every bubbling fondue pot is the result of molecular interactions you never see. You've probably melted cheese hundreds of times, but today you understand it. And that changes everything. So, next time you're making grilled cheese, ask yourself, am I melting the right cheese the right way? And if you want to dive even deeper, here's your next bite. Why does melted cheese taste so much better than cold cheese? There's an entire science behind flavor release and aroma molecules that only show up when the cheese melts. So, don't be shy. Hit that subscribe button and age like fine cheese. I'll show you how melting doesn't just change texture, it unlocks taste itself. Thank you for watching.